Hello and welcome to Faragadamu. In recognition of women who've made a difference in society, the Association of Women in Business, AWIB, is hosting its 6th edition of Women of Excellence Award at the end of this month. And I'm joined by 2 of the 5 nominees. Professor Yalemtsehay Mekonnen is an academic who's devoted her life to research, teaching, and mentoring. Getaneh made good use of her modeling career by establishing an NGO that provides access to education and another one that's bent on promoting African culture and fashion. And Sewit Haileselassie, a board member of AWIB, is also here with us. You had, 36 nominees?
36 nominees early this year, early 2017, and we screened them out through investigation, and we had around 15. And 15 we actually went and interviewed and spent some time with them and did a background check. And after 15 and about a third deliberation, we actually came up with 5 nominees for the Women of Excellence title this year.
Let me start with you. You were one of the first women, young girls actually, who graduated from the Department of Biology at Addis Ababa University way back in 1978.
Thank you very much. That was the graduate program, which was launched in 1978, and the first graduate program in Addis Ababa University, in fact, throughout the country. So at that time, we were only 4 candidates, and I was the only woman, but I'm not proud of being the only woman.
That, in a way, defined the way you wanted to be in the years later, right?
In 1992, I came back after getting my PhD in Germany. Through the years, there's an expansion, as all of you know. And there are many universities now, and then there are many young women. And I'm proud to have many young women now, academic staff from in the different universities of the country.
You were born in Sweden, yeah? So your father was a diplomat, right? And you became the breakout girl, if you will, in the 90s, right?
Yes, yeah, sort of, yeah. It wasn't really planned like that, but I ended up looking for something to do that was a little more exciting than what the future held for me at university or what my parents wanted me to do. So I thought, well, why did I venture into fashion? I thought I was going to do it for 1 year. And then I had a wonderful opportunity. I was in Paris at the right time, the right location, Paris being the center of fashion. And I ended up having a 10-year career, and I ended up doing everything I wanted to do, and fashion became my entry point. It became my vehicle to do all the things, and finally got the blessing of my parents. I finally got my degree. I finally found a wonderful husband to marry, because everybody was worried if you become a model, and you know. So yeah, I ended up making a great career out of the fashion industry, and it led me to do what I'm doing today here in Ethiopia. I've become very passionate about promoting fashion, promoting youth, promoting culture, and got to learn to become a designer myself along the way. So, yeah, I think it's been a fantastic journey for me, and I feel very blessed to do what I'm doing and to do it every single day and to still do it today at my age, because normally at 25, the fashion industry is over because it's a young industry and you have young people coming in. But I've managed to stretch my career.
And the right time for black girls like yourself.
Absolutely. To be the 90s. I mean, like the perfect timing. I could not have planned it better, even though I didn't plan it at all. I just wanted a little break from living with my parents and having quite a sheltered life, even though we lived abroad many years and grew up abroad. My parents are traditional Ethiopians and wanted to make sure that we remain traditional. So I wanted to just discover the world on my own, and I wasn't sure what I could do. And people said, well, you're tall, why don't you get into fashion? I thought, well, don't I need to go to school? Don't I need, some kind of experience at this? And as long as you can walk on 2 feet and hold your head up. And I said, that's not a problem as being Ethiopian. So I went to Paris, knocked on doors, and, and I was able to, part-time job became a full-time job and became a whole career. And I used it as an opportunity to really promote the things that were important for me.
It's a very interesting mix that you have for this year, right? I mean, you have Anna in fashion, you have the professor in academia, and we have one journalist. It's very unfortunate that Eleni Mokria, one of the pioneer journalists in this country, is not here today, and so on, right? I mean,
we have Lidia in sport, Dr. Momina, a medical doctor who's revolutionizing the transplant field in Ethiopia, and I'm very pleased with this year's selection. I mean, we could not have planned it ourselves.
You didn't plan it, right? I mean,
no, it was a random recommendation, and these were the best of what we had for this year, and it's amazing that we can have such a diverse set of role models for young girls that we can introduce to the public, and it's amazing. We're very pleased. The AWIB team is very pleased with this year's selection.
You said earlier that you're not proud of being the first woman, one of the first few women to graduate from Addis Ababa University. Does that bother you?
It's very interesting, actually. Maybe it's by design or by luck. I'm the first in so many categories, the first graduate women, and then the first women professor in Ethiopia, and the first board member of the first Ethiopian Academy of Sciences, and so on and so forth. So maybe my personality is a kind of, maybe I'm from my generation. We just want to work hard, and then we continue working. The product of your work is through the products we make. And my products are my students. My products are my research collaborators in Ethiopia and abroad. So I feel comfortable when I'm, with the people that share my experience, that I also learn from them. So I'm thankful.
So that's what you're providing, right? Yeah, training young people become,
Yeah, excel. So I'm really passionate that the young, primarily women, but of course men and boys and girls together, they have to really find their niche in society and their passion in whatever they do. So I always promote wherever I go, formally or informally. When I go to field trip, I've been going to many parts of Ethiopia, down to Konso, Hammer, up on the mountains of Bale, Senate Plateau, and so many.
Well, as a biologist, that's where you belong, right? I mean, do field work and so on, basic research,
collecting
right?
plants, talking about, health issues, talking about the hazard of chemical pesticides. I've been working through the Rift Valleys with my students, going to, Amalka, no electricity back in the 90s, the European calendar. So I really, that's my passion. And it's not only for me, but to have it with others. And then at this moment, I'm so proud of having young academics who are the key people in development. I'm not claiming that other fields are not, it's just like a puzzle, So to make a long story short, that is a kind of, happiness that I have having more professors, more young girls and boys being themselves and pursuing life, and then, helping themselves. Once you help yourself, you can help others, and then that is very important beyond the national perspective, globally, everywhere, as everybody knows, the globe is a big village. So that's what I'm doing now, and I'm proud of that.
Right, interesting. Anna, you were approached by an international NGO, Pharmacists Without Borders, right, to do something among for refugees in the Horn of Africa, right? Absolutely. You brought aboard Ethiopian artists and so on. You kind of redefined your...
That was the number one thing for me when I got into the industry, and I realized, the power of the press and also the power of the industry, if you will. I wanted to make sure that I push forward my agenda of promoting Ethiopian culture.
So tell me about what happened in 19...
So I was working for a French agency called Diva, wonderful agency, and once again, really lucky because I could have been in the wrong agency and my life could have taken a different direction. But Jean-Louis Dumas, really very progressive in his thinking and very open to understanding the needs of each and every model that he managed. And so I told him I really want to do things around Ethiopia. So when Pharmacists Sans Frontières approached him, in our agency there was a very well-known, I won't mention names, a model from Somalia, a very well-known model from Kenya, and myself. And I was sort of the new one. And so they did not want to come on board. The pharmacists wanted to do a fundraising to raise money for refugees in East Africa. The other two were not available or interested. But when they came to me and they said, do you want to do it? I just said, absolutely.
But I would do it my own way.
But I said, you know what? They said, you're going to be on TV and we're going to show images of this and you're going to be there and you're going to get emotional. I thought, no. I'm not going to do that. I said, everybody else is doing that. So I really wanted to use that platform to actually communicate and show positive things. And because I love the arts, I thought, well, why don't we do an art exhibition? And wonderful people at the Pharmacists Sans Frontières, they said, okay, let's give it a try. Let's do a wonderful big event. but what are you going to do at this event? I said, well, I'm going to get the best artist. So I literally had to start my research then. I had heard of Iskender, I've heard of Johannes Gadamu, Girmay Hiwat, Mikhail Beteseles. I had heard of these, but I never had met them. And I was calling them through friends, through contacts, through embassy. Everybody came on board. In 10 days, I had their confirmation. They flew down to Paris, and we did a wonderful event. And we had a huge turnout. We raised enough money for them to get onto the mission immediately. And obviously, the one thing I asked them was, obviously, after all this, I hope you're going to take me on your mission, because I knew that was going to be very important for me.
And you did.
And I did.
Nairobi.
I did. And
you
it was
visited the refugee camps and so on.
It was such a whirlwind because I was not ready, and I had not come back to Ethiopia. I left Ethiopia. We lived in Ethiopia between the ages of 8 and 12, and then I left Ethiopia at 12. So here I was, and I had wanted to come back to Ethiopia, to the region, but I was sort of planning. I wasn't sure how, when things were going to come together. I didn't want to come back just to visit or as a tourist. I didn't grow up here, so it wasn't like I had like childhood friends or anything. Of course, my grandmother and my relatives. So I wanted to come back and do something meaningful, and I just didn't know how things were going to come together. So when they said, do you want to come? They said, you can come. I said, well, Moyale, is it Ethiopia or Kenya? They said, well, there's Moyale in Kenya. So I said, well, maybe can I just ride on a camel and then get to Ethiopia? I just want to go back home. But they said, we have to go with a mission. And so I spent a week there. And when I arrived there, I realized I was there. I had not prepared myself at all. I just, organizing the event, I had a full-time day job. I was traveling. And all of a sudden, all I knew was that I had to get on this plane to go to Moyale and pack my boots. I had my backpack and got on the plane. And all of a sudden, I was around people who were very different from people I work with. I work in a very sort of luxurious, glamorous environment. And here were people super serious, computers and doctors and journalists and everything. And then here I was, nobody knew who I was, what I was doing. I was just, but it was maybe the best thing that could have happened to me. And so
they make it sound easy, right?
I know, which is what we want, really. We want young girls to be inspired. We want people to know that there are phenomenal women like this, women of excellence that have integrity, that have the drive to make what they want into reality, to take action. We want people to know that there are phenomenal Ethiopian women like this in our own country, maybe even right in our neighborhood, and we don't even know about it. Yeah.
So you're a grandmother.
Yes.
You've published over 100 papers over the last several years. You keep on teaching and training young Ethiopians, boys and girls. You do research and so on. And you also volunteer. You've made contributions along that track as well. I mean, it's very interesting. How do you manage all this?
A time for me, maybe it went a long way. I used to read books, in my generation. In high school, there was no internet. Even the internet era came in the 1980s. When I did my PhD in Germany, there was no email, late 1980s. So I'm a person who wants to engage. For me, one is not enough. So when I was a child at home, I read books. When I was in high school, the British Council, we borrow books, we read, and also participate in church activity and so on. So coming back to the university, my university education or the university era, also we are busy, but still I do some activities. But when I'm an adult, after becoming an academics, so teaching, research, when you do research, you go to the community. So you see so many things. The poverty, the gap in knowledge, even the simple things of hygiene. There are so many issues. I don't want to take much time. This platform. So I want to contribute as much as possible. I want to engage myself professionally and also be of service to others. It's just like I always say that I'm like going to a church or to a mosque and then preaching, but I do it informally. It's also for benefit. It reflects back to you because nobody is perfect. We learned through our years, and we improve, and life is beautiful because of this. So I got married early. I got my 2 kids, and then luckily my daughter also got married. She has 2 kids, and then my son has recently a boy. So I have now added to the list 3 grandkids. I said time life is too short to be little, so I have to maximize. I'm never satisfied with engaging myself with, strictly academics, no.
So you are kind of a multi-track person, right?
Yeah, I diffuse myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you passionate about what you do?
Very
whether
much.
it's volunteerism or academia, whatever, right?
Yeah. And then if I can't contribute anything, I just don't do it. Yeah. So if I commit myself to something, I'm obliged to do it. It's not that if I don't do it, nobody, may say, oh, she's not doing her job. I don't like to hear that. Maybe because of my academic, because I was a good student, so I want to excel. Maybe that has followed me through my years. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that not excelling, it depends. This is a matter of defining excellence, isn't it? Right. So
it's a relative term. Yeah.
It's a relative term, actually. So what I say is, if I'm of service to somebody, it's good, let me do it. So even my friends always say, Halem, you do so just take it easy. Why you are always in the air? Okay, calm down, cool down. I think nowadays I'm cooling down a little bit, but I still pursue my volunteerism.
Are you cooling down?
No, not at all.
So basically fashion brought you to, you created, you established, what is it, the Ethiopian Children's...
Yeah, ECF Children's Fund.
Children's Fund, because you wanted to work for and among children, right? Yes. Young people. Yeah. And then you had the African Mosaic, which is, what is it? It's a...
well, it started...
It's not strictly a business thing. I mean...
Interestingly enough, it's had a long history, because we when I came back and I wanted to start the school, I needed to raise money. And I realized I had no track record, even though I knew there was a lot of money out there.
You just can't nag your family and friends, right?
A 21-year-old who has no track record, any money, and I wanted to build schools every 2 years. So I thought, why don't I go back into my industry and come up with an idea and try to raise money within my industry. I thought, well, I also wanted to promote African fashion and African culture. My mother's a fashion designer. We also lived in West Africa. And so I felt, why don't we start sort of a cultural movement and promote African fashion? So African Mosaic was actually only plan was to be just 1 or 2 off events where I was going to raise tons of money and come and build tons of schools. So
now it's on its 8th edition?
But, oh my goodness, we've been doing it in Ethiopia for 16 years. 16 years, yeah. And we finished a full cycle. We have students in university graduating from ECF Children's Fund. But the initial event was to do a big event in Paris, a big event in New York, and then with that money to have some kind of seed capital to start the school. And then hopefully, because after that, we were going to have, obviously, raise money through other donors, etc.
One quick question. You didn't use disturbing images, did you?
Never. People came to our events, had a good time, and that it was about celebrating fashion, about celebrating our culture. I didn't want people to feel guilty. I grew up in Europe when they were playing like the national anthem at one of our school activities was "We Are the World," okay? And here I am, I was young, and they put me in the middle, and everybody's thinking we're, and I felt it, because I go home, I see my mother, my father, who's intelligent, we're well-read, educated at Oxford. My mom is a fashion designer. There are people, we're not all, we do have problems, but there's this other side of Ethiopia and Ethiopians that people didn't know about. And I had a hard time when I was pretty thin growing up, and kids at school would say, do you want to share a school lunch? Because I was so thin. And I said, well, I'm not eating because I don't want to eat. I don't like eating. I'd rather play, And my school lunch was there. And I would tell my parents, I'd say, you guys are telling me about this incredible country. You're telling us about our heritage, our history. My mom, we always have Getaneh in the house. We always have, we learn how to make dorowet and all of that. And then the rest of the world doesn't seem to know. And my dad used to say, well,
go figure it out.
Figure out how you're going to make, everybody has to play their part, So that has always been on my mind, even though I had no clue what I was going to do in high school or in university. I had no clue what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to sit behind the desk. I knew I wanted to travel, but I just didn't know what it was. So that's why I'm forever grateful to this industry, because it just...
And you have these Paris and New York shows, right, for African Mosaic, right?
So what we did is we piggybacked on the major fashion shows in the Paris Fashion Week is like #1 fashion week, and New York Fashion Week. And because I was doing most of the shows, obviously I knew a lot of the people. I said, can I do a show for, African fashion to raise money for Ethiopia? And they're like, So I went to New York, and New York was like, and I said, well, I'm going to do it in Paris first if you guys don't want to do it. So I was sort of playing this bidding game. So, of course, Paris was like, no, we have to do it first. So Paris sponsored us entirely. We did a huge event at the Carrousel du Louvre with 1,000 people. And all of a sudden, headlines were like, Herald Tribune, New York Times are like, it's an African fashion moment. And I was thinking, my God, it's like we've had fashion in Africa forever. It's just nobody knew about it, And we invited all these designers. Yeah, exactly. Western designers are inspired by what we're doing in Africa.
Yeah.
They're inspired. They come. I haven't, no. Yeah. I haven't yet. But, the inspiration is there. Designers come, take pictures. They go and they create a whole collection. Yeah. But none of that is trickling back. And yet we have designers. And so that became my mission.
So you're promoting African culture, African fashion and so on, at the same time raising funds for your school.
Absolutely, yeah.
In Aleltu, which is how many kilometers outside of town?
55 kilometers north.
So basically you are the same territory.
Yeah, we share our vision.
But what I decided...
You basically train young girls and boys and make them...
Bring them to us and feed us.
Yeah, ECF now, our school has really matured. It's become a wonderful school. I have a fantastic team, a fantastic staff. I only moved to Ethiopia 4 years ago. So up until, over 10 years it's been, and I'm obviously flying back and forth as often as I could, but it's really become a role sort of model school, I believe. Good. And then obviously now Africa Mosaic has its own life, meaning, I thought, well, instead of just making it into a charity fashion entity, why don't I make it into a more sustainable one? So. And
all your employees are women, right?
Primarily.
Are you a feminist or what? Yeah. What is that?
Our industry, I find that women are very focused on details, and I find that women are perhaps more loyal as well and more interested in the creative industries. And so I've just been attracted to, women who have been, even though they don't have fashion background, there's only one university in Ethiopia now giving a fashion. So it's been really difficult to get this business off the ground. But now we have a lot of work.
Is that a fair perception?
Yeah, and they're very loyal.
Especially in the garment and fashion industry, it's been known to be the case that women are more reliable. It's also been found that it's easier for young mothers or mothers in general to bring along their kids to work, so they gravitate towards this particular field. So it's been an opportune win-win situation for both the employers and the employees in the fashion garment industry. So, yeah.
Did you know about these two women before they came to your attention? With the nomination process?
I knew about African Mosaic, and I knew about Professor Yalemtsehay because I'm an academic. I worked a little bit in university, but some of them have been quite a surprise. This was an exception. Out of the 15, maybe I personally knew 3 of the nominees, and it's the same for most of my colleagues. It's not just me that went and worked on this. It was many of my colleagues, and a lot of us, it was new stories for us. So it's like kids in a candy store because we volunteer for women's leadership development. So to find these women in our community, it's been an amazing experience.
Well, keep up the good work, and thank you very much for being here on the show. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, and good luck.